Well, good morning and welcome to Coffee with Ken. I'm Ken Biberaj, a managing director with Savills, a leading tenant advisory commercial real estate firm. It has been 10 weeks since the CDC relaxed the mask mandate for vaccinated Americans as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. In the news today, China rejected a renewed World Health Organization investigation on the coronavirus, and the Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Phoenix Suns for the NBA Finals. Today's topic is the future of work and real estate, and we're joined by Michele Schneider, Senior Vice President of Workplace Services at Salesforce. Michele, great to see you.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thank you so much. Calling in from the Salesforce Tower, San Francisco.
Oh, exciting. Was this your first time there?
Oh, no, I've been coming in for weeks,
I'm sure you have. Well, look, I mean, I used to do this thing at the beginning where it was like how many weeks since the pandemic started, and we had to kind of stop that, and how many weeks since CDC relaxed mandates. But it's been like 16 months since everyone kind of returned home on the exact same day. And everyone's slowly kind of coming back to the office at a different cadence, under different kind of plans and strategies. But take us real quick, the last 16 months, like what were they like for you, your team, and also the priorities and focus of Salesforce over the last 16 months? How did your day job change, basically?
Absolutely. So personally, of course, dramatic change and no more travel. And my team, we have, over 100 offices globally, and I was constantly traveling, visiting the offices. And so having that come to a halt, was tough because I like to be face-to-face with my folks. Personally, of course, it was a change as well. I am able to work out 4 days a week now. So, hey, there's the silver lining. But definitely, just like everyone else, how to navigate this. And I was just in a constant state of worry, really, for my team and with my team, because none of us have managed through this before. Clearly, we've been through, snowstorms, hurricanes, short-term outages where the offices have had to close down, but nothing where we had to do a full global shutdown and then really immediately think about what are we going to do? How do we keep the offices operating? And then as we were thinking about reopening, what did that look like? And was that a phased approach? Is that, how do we manage bringing folks back in as safely as possible for the employees, as well as my own team, and of course our third-party vendors that come in, janitorial, F&B, things like that, as well as, it really heightened our relationship with the landlords. I mean, we always kind of had that relationship, but boy, did we have to start digging in on things about the building, the health and wellness of the building, and things like that. So, clearly new skills, new conversations that we had to be having that we hadn't had before.
Amazing. I mean, I think one of the things that's so fascinating about this time period has really been like the acceleration and importance of almost human resources and employee engagement, right? I mean, it's something where you think like the real estate operates in a silo and HR and engagement operates separately. How is that all intertwined with you and your role on the facilities and event side vis-a-vis engaging and communicating and hearing from your people? I mean, how has that all kind of, maybe shifted or escalated over the last year and a half?
Yeah, absolutely. It was very interesting for us because while we very much consider ourselves as the team that helps bring culture to life through real estate, right? So we very much have a hospitality lens that as soon as somebody steps in the door, that welcoming feeling, when you're in our spaces. And we'd always partnered with our HR team and IT and safety and security. Well, clearly this just brought our four groups together, like we had never been before. And really the importance of having one voice and one communication back and forth. So our HR team takes the lead on the communications for the most part. They do monthly surveys. They started them right away with the employees to understand their kind of health and well-being and how they were feeling during the pandemic. And then of course we would weave in questions about how are you feeling about coming back to the office? How are you feeling about hybrid work or permanent work from home? So all those questions were being asked in addition to kind of health and wellness along the way. So that helped us as we were developing our plans of returning to the office, taking that employee feedback, into our planning process.
Well, what I love in terms of just like tracking you and your return, right? We work in real estate, so we're advising companies how to think about their own cadence of returning and really almost putting real estate on the back burner, just focusing on right now, the immediate need is just communication, right? It's about engaging and communicating with your folks. But you're so forward facing as a company. I mean, whether it's work.com, like you're putting out your kind of best practices and lessons learned publicly. And I think that's so exciting. I mean, talk about like, why is that important? Why are you leaning into kind of showing how you're going through it, and what steps you're taking, and how you can be a resource to other companies kind of navigating similarly?
Absolutely. Actually, that was a conversation. My manager, Elizabeth Pinkham, who's our EVP of Global Real Estate, she was in leadership meetings and saying, this is going to be a lot of work coming back to the office. We have to do a lot, it's going to be technology driven, it's going to be data driven, also it's going to be feedback driven. So I think with that, the executive leadership team came together and said, we need to develop a product called work.com. And that was our introduction. We, as Global Workplace Services, are customer zero on work.com. And how do we use our own technology with the products and platform that we have to create something to bring people back to the office? So there is a whole other stream of workplace services working with our own developers and engineers and IT team to create this new product, which has been an amazing experience as well, kind of under the force function of how do we get folks back in safely? So, we do a self-attestation. I take my temperature every morning, and we have this process everyone has to go through to come back to the office. That has been led through this work.com product. And of course, wanted to post that. We've shared that. If you go to work.com, you can see all of our processes and the information if anyone wants to access it.
That's incredible. Now, look, you have global locations, right? So take us through like how the last few months have been as you're slowly opening offices. Like, where have you opened? How are you thinking about it? What percentage of offices are open, and what's the cadence of timing? Are you back domestically, by the fall? Are you thinking Q4? What's the kind of spectrum of occupancy that you're seeing, or the strategy you put in place for your portfolio?
Yeah, well, as everyone knows, places like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, those locations, we were able to open last summer, right, and into the fall. And so those offices gave us great opportunities to, again, survey employees, get more data, understand how people were coming back, how often they wanted to come back, how comfortable they were coming back. I don't think anyone will be surprised. People don't really want to come in on Mondays and Fridays. So we originally started with our offices open Monday through Thursday, leaving Friday for my team to be able to get the offices cleaned, ready, deep cleaned, whatever we needed to do. But those offices really informed quite a bit on how we were going to open through the rest of the world. We actually did have a few offices open in Europe, but then quickly had to shut them down. We're really good at opening and closing offices now. If and when we need to. Yeah. And then, so the international, because of privacy laws and things like that, we go through a phased process, which means we're in phase one, and this is our own phased process we created. But you don't have to always be vaccinated to come in, or certain government agencies may say you have to do a two-team method, right? Because if somebody does come down with COVID, that team can be isolated. The other team can continue to come in. So lots of business continuity things as well we were addressing. Obviously with India, that's been hard hit. So we've really been working with that team. How do we make those employees feel supported, and whatever they need to get their internet at home or their computer or whatever services they need. That has been a huge effort from our HR team and IT team to help that region. As far as the US goes, we're actually doing something called a voluntary vaccination cohort. So it's a little different in the US. And what we're doing is we're saying, if you'd like to come back to the office voluntarily, you are vaccinated. And so you go through a process. I showed my card to someone, and they verified that I was vaccinated, as well as on my team. And we can come in. We have a scheduling tool that we use through work.com, and you sign up for a shift and you come in. And so we're taking a very, I would say, thoughtful approach to this, right? We're only opening 1 or 2 floors at a time because we're tracking attendance. And again, as soon as you come back to the office, we're also surveying you again and saying, how do you feel, right? So really trying to keep that top of mind. So it is a little different US versus the international offices. But as of today, we're over 55% of our offices are open.
Right.
So we're really excited about that. It's a release valve for folks, right? Some people, as you know, having lived in New York, they might have a lot of roommates, or maybe they don't have a lot of space and they're working in their next to their laundry, their their washer dryer. And so we really wanted to kind of create that opportunity for folks that their wellness or stress may be around working at home, right? And so how do we do that as well? So not creating any kind of a big I'm going to say plan right now around it, but it's really up to the employee how and when they want to come in. And then we're learning, like, what work can you do at home versus what work could and should you be able to do in the office.
Yeah. And then I imagine a certain percentage of your folks, have already previously pre-COVID worked at home or were remote normally. How are you seeing kind of the distribution of your workforce in terms of like, permanently remote, a hybrid versus expected to kind of be in there more regularly? Like, how are you, what are those numbers kind of shaking out? I know it's early, but.
Yeah, no, well, pre-pandemic, we had about 18% of employees who were permanent at home. Clearly, we expect that to go up a few percentage points. This flex model, which is, very well marketed right now, we kind of had that organically happening anyway. Our attendance at our offices was really between 55 and 65% globally because we're a traveling company, right? Yeah. We have volunteer time off. People are visiting customers or, working with other team members. And so people weren't really coming in 4 to 5 days a week anyway. It was in the high 40s is really that group. So we expect that group to jump up to the mid 60s, right? Maybe 70s, something like that. And then of course, we'll still have our 10 to 15% that come in 4 to 5 days a week, my team facilities, IT folks, kind of your normal in-office support, back of house, and my events team, obviously.
Yeah.
We expect in a bit of a shift as we think people will clearly do more individual work at home or calls and things like that at home. We look forward to hosting employee meetings and customer meetings, partner meetings, going back to eventually when it's safe, bringing the community back in as we offer community options in the top of our towers on our Ohana floor. So so we're excited and ready to come back, but knowing we have to do this with health and safety top of mind.
Totally. Now tell us, so because of those numbers, obviously you've rolled out and then kind of embraced the success from anywhere kind of strategy. Tell us about that. I mean, how is that playing out? What are you encouraging folks when it comes to how they should or shouldn't use the office and so on? I mean, right, like you're not expecting people to come and if they are in the office 9 to 5 sitting at a desk, right? Imagining you're encouraging more of a collaboration effort and ecosystem, as they return.
Definitely. So one of the first things that we've been working on as a company is something called teaming agreements. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure other companies are doing the same thing, right? What does your team need to accomplish in the office? What is your team able to accomplish at home? And or if you have remote workers, how do you take that all into consideration? So those plans are being worked on. And so especially in large groups like the engineering team, sales teams, right? Like those are really big plans they need to draft and figure out how each team works.
Which is important, sorry to interrupt, but like from an equity standpoint, pretty important, right? Like in terms of like, if you level set everybody, then no one feels left out and there's kind of an understanding from the beginning about how teams will operate, right? Is that the intent to kind of?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things is I have 9 direct reports globally. So instead of having 3 of us in a room, we should probably all be online together, and then everyone is equitable during the call, right? Yeah. Nobody feels left out. And things like, you hear a lot about promotion and moving up and development, right? Yeah. We have a lot of conversations around that. And what does that mean for our real estate team, but also as a company, how are we going to manage things like that? And then, of course, you brought something else up I was going to touch on, which was, I'm sorry, it was teaming agreements, and then I was gonna go to,
Like collaboration and when they should be in the
yeah,
office.
sorry, how to use the space. So,
Yeah.
sorry. So we have been doing some pilots, and we're, testing with furniture, clearly testing with technology is definitely going to be a huge influence in this new flexible or hybrid workforce going forward. So we're doing some technology piloting as well. And also really what we're finding is we really have to be specific in giving folks, how does this space work? How should you use this space? How can you use this space? So we're finding you just can't set something up and walk away from it. Like, we really have to be specific and intentional, and this is set up for you to use in this way or that way. And then if they want to use it different ways, we'll learn from them. But definitely in the beginning, we're finding we need to do things like that.
So in terms of like your physical space now, are you kind of removing the traditional seating and creating more of like, touchdown spaces, collaboration, kind of like gathering setup?
We
Like, how
are,
are you
we are
physically
doing that
your
in our
four
offices.
walls? Yeah.
Absolutely. So we might pull out a pod of desks and put in different kind of furniture. Is it collaboration furniture? Is it different ways of seating? Is it community tables? Right? Is it, we have some, we call them banquettes, and we're facing some towards the window and some away from the window. Well, the ones facing the window, people really love. So you look good. It gives you a nice during your call. So again, observing behavior, observing usage of how folks are using these space. And then if we have a space that no one's using, then we'll either swap it out, change to, figure out, is there something wrong? Are you not understanding, or is this not comfortable? Things like quiet spaces, right? Especially if we're moving to an all neighborhood seating model or flexible seating model. And so folks won't have desks going forward, right? Because we expect them to only come in 1 to 3 days a week. So then how do we create spaces where if you do want to sit for 2 hours and there's no phones and it's quiet, and doing some spaces like that. So, trying to think through, what is your experience during the day? Even if you do come in, it doesn't necessarily mean you're in meetings 8 to 5.
Yeah, sure.
Do a call, or you may need to do an hour or two of heads down work. So how do we kind of provide all of that to you?
So how you have this amazing kind of like events background where you've handled so much on the event side. How are you kind of maybe more so than in the past leaning on that experience as you kind of, look to encourage and get people excited about coming back to the office? It's almost like every meeting is an event now because everyone's missed each other so much, right? It's like you go for like a get together, and it's like, it's amazing. It's exciting to kind of, these early days when we're all getting back together. So how do you think about kind of capitalizing on, that event experience and vibe and hospitality you've tried to create within the space to encourage work, I guess?
Absolutely. So we have an event called Dreamforce, which is our global gathering. It takes place in San Francisco, and 180,000 people register for it. And it's definitely a huge cultural, touch point for us, connecting community, customers, partners, the employees, and our HQ campus has been a part of Dreamforce the last 4 or 5 years. And so with my experience, having been on the event side, I definitely think about the employee experience or any guest experience that comes in. That is always top of mind. That is always a question we have when you walk in. So today when I walked in, somebody greets me, somebody checks my check-in thing, that we have masks. We actually have music playing in the lobby. Like, we want it to feel as friendly and welcoming as possible, because we know the journey to get to the office right now is very stressful. Right?
Yeah.
If you're taking public transportation, there's a lot of stress around that, or just you've been comfortable at home and now you have, you're building your schedule back again.
Sure.
So how do we make that as welcoming and easy as possible? I have folks doing help desks on floors. So normally we wouldn't do that. But of course, if you come in and we just want someone there to help you feel as comfortable as possible. And then of course, through our, as we get back to doing events and hosting customers and meetings and things like that, we're working on that so that everyone feels safe coming back in, but we're ready to turn on the. So.
Well, listen, like I think during the pandemic, Salesforce is one of those companies that seen pretty explosive growth. At the same time as, people have kind of maybe exited kind of urban centers and living in their communities. How do you think about the future of work in real estate, right? Like you've kind of embraced these amazing Salesforce towers in major metropolitan areas, right? But like, Boise, Idaho has seen a massive influx of people, right? A lot of young and talented there, Nashville. How are you thinking about your future footprint in real estate or providing opportunities for space to people who geographically may be all over the place?
Right. So a couple things on that is when we are constantly evaluating our workforce plan and where our workforce sits and where talent is, right? So we've actually hired over 16,000 people during the pandemic, and that's 16,000 people who've never been into our offices or ever experienced our culture in person. So, we're really aware of that, and we're trying to figure out how to get those folks in as soon as possible. Our HR team is, again, thinking of what we're calling on sites in a box, where teams used to go do off sites at hotels or different locations. We're encouraging them to come in, bring your team in the office, fill your cup, right, and then go home, whether that's Boise or Danville or San Jose or wherever that is. But come into the office and get together and get your plans going, and then go back out, go home, go wherever and do your work. So that's another tack we're taking as well. Obviously, I would love to see the offices, the high utilization as much as possible.
Of course.
So, really wanting to make the most of our space. So then we're thinking about what new programs can we offer? What things can we do that will help employees, again, do that work they need to get to when they need to be together, and then that they can go back home or go back to their other location and work. So we do constantly look at real estate. We have some great towers coming online in Dublin and in Chicago and Sydney coming on in the next few years. So really excited about having that new space available to us as well. So, but then again, thinking about those spaces, like, how is this going to change in the next 3 to 5 years, right?
So have you lifetime been kind of making adjustment to some of those spaces that are now delivering in a post-COVID world about how they may have been previously designed versus what the rollout will be when they're done?
Absolutely. So we're thinking about our Salesforce design, which intentionally was meant to be very flexible to start with, right? So even the flexibility is even more important in all aspects of doing this going forward. What things could we or should we future-proof against going forward? Are there things we should build into the space so that if we do need to flip it quickly, or if we do need to adjust, what can we do that incrementally helps as we look out the next 3 to 5 years of our space usage? So being flexible, being agile, making sure that space is thought through and not just cookie cutter what we've been doing. So taking the time.
We talk a lot with clients about how like the leverage dynamic has shifted, right? Like there's 3 buckets of influence in real estate, in our opinion, right? You have the landlord, the company, and then the employees, right? And it was always like landlord provides X space with these conditions, tenant leases space, tenant tells employees 9 to 5, be there. Now, like the whole thing is flipped, where employees want flexibility. They've proven they can be productive, adaptable, and get things done, and you've been able to trust them. So now they're kind of, informing leadership of companies. Now you're putting leverage on landlords, right? Like, so it's a different dynamic about what you expect the landlord to do from a health, safety, wellness perspective, right? How have you seen that paradigm shift in terms of just like decision making? And what are you expecting in the future from your landlords, right? Is it well certification? Is it, LEED Platinum? Like, are there certain things that are now becoming more of a priority as you approach markets and leverage your buying power as a massive consumer of real estate?
So yes, we have definitely gone back and looked at our leases, honestly, and leasing going forward, and what new things do we need to have conversations about in our leases about things like plumbing and HVAC. I mean, very basic, but we have done a lot of work with a gentleman named Joe Allen out of.
Of course, he was on the Coffee with Ken.
Oh, did you? Oh, I need to go back and watch it. Sorry. So we're using 9 Foundations, and so that's really helping inform us in what we want to do, how we want to do it. We've gone through all of our buildings and doing that work with the landlords currently, and what can we do? Because we think, indoor air quality is obviously a big topic. And again, back to that, how do we prepare going forward to make sure people feel that the buildings are as healthy as possible. And then, of course, we also have something, we have covenants of real estate that a few years ago, Mark Benioff and Elizabeth Pinkham and the real estate leadership team came up with, and what were things that we really wanted to have whenever we looked at new real estate or whenever we went to revisit something. And it's things like plants, adding oxygen to the air for health and wellness. It's, we have something called a video as architecture. So we have some beautiful, really video architecture walls when you come into some of our spaces. Obviously, the Ohana floor on the top floor.
Yeah.
We do not have offices for executives on the top floor. It's open to all. We put skylights in some of those Ohana floors so we can have as much natural light as possible. So we've been working with those things the last 4 or 5 years. Now, of course, we have to revisit those going forward and add a few more things there to make sure that, again, back to the health and wellness of the employees, it's top of mind.
So look, real estate was always something that helped recruit and retain talent, right? That's why it's so important and why you invest those dollars. You've been, as a company, very transparent about flexibility, engaging your employees. There's an expectation that in the next 6 months, there's going to be a bit of a tsunami of turnover of talent where people are going to be kind of looking to relocate. How do you think all of this maybe positions Salesforce to be in a stronger spot to maybe recruit new talent that may be looking for something else because of the flexibility? And you kind of read in the press certain companies, financial institutions, including some tech companies, maybe coming out with a little bit more, rigid of a focus on kind of returning to the office. How do you think maybe that helps you? How do you think this is all going to shake out?
Well, definitely we're in hiring mode, right? As I mentioned earlier, and looking to hire more folks going forward. And we do think a lot about that. How do we, again, create this flexibility, create these opportunities for recruiting and for retention, right? Not just recruiting, but for retention as well. And of course, make it one of the top places to work. So one of the things we're very focused on is culture, and making sure that culture comes through no matter where you are, if you're at home or you're coming into the office. So that is, I would say, number one priority for us is really focusing on that company culture, because we do feel like it's such a driver in recruiting and retaining our team members globally.
Well, last question, and I'll let you go. But when you think about culture and your physical space, where do you go for inspiration to kind of, be motivated about what people maybe or maybe aren't looking for space? Because I feel like it's different now as people are kind of coming back.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, probably in the beginning, I think in the beginning of the call, when we were talking earlier, definitely Disney, right? So love to see the operations of Disney World and Disneyland. I went to Disneyland in May just to observe how they were managing through this as well. We love to get inspiration actually from different industries, right? Whether it's your experience at the airport, whether it's at the Grammys, or it could be really any kind of an experience. How do you, back to that, how do you feel when you step into our spaces, and how do we make you feel as welcome and comfortable and easy to navigate as possible? We definitely look to retail, we look to sports. We look at all kinds of experiences to see what they can do, or how they're hosting their guests and what they're doing with their spaces, and how we can learn from that. So
I mean, it's very similar to how restaurants approach it, right? I mean, like, it's this mentality where, like, you as a company, like, your employees are your customers, right? And it's how do you make them feel welcome and engaged while they're in your space? Yeah.
Right. We just want them to be happy and productive.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, listen, this was such a treat. I mean, I'm so excited to see you in your office at Salesforce Tower in San Francisco, and appreciate you taking the time not only to be here on Coffee with Ken, but for everything you guys are putting out there publicly, as everyone around the world is thinking about getting back to the office and some type of sense of normalcy. So we're grateful to you for that.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
Amazing. And look, everybody tuning in, thanks for being here. Our next Coffee with Ken is going to be on August 4th. We're going to have Gavin Michael, the CEO of Bakkt, to discuss the transformation of digital assets. Please visit coffeewithken.com to sign up and see past sessions. In the meantime, please make sure you get vaccinated. Michelle, thanks so much. Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.